Hey guys, welcome to another episode of She Knows Arsenal Daily. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Justino Tweets and at She Knows Arsenal. We're going to be going through a couple of things today on the show. Obviously, we're going to do a deeper dive into Arsenal's win versus Leicester, where we won 4-2 at the Emirates, as well as some transfer news mixed in and around that. I've set up the show in a way where we'll talk about all those things kind of like together. And yeah, I also have some like questions for you guys to get involved. And so, yeah, make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I have to say that, like, I thought our like on rewatch, I'm like speechless a little bit just because like watching us back, you can just see how far we've come like as a team. And the philosophy of like Arteta and how he's been able to like get this team playing in a way that's attractive on the eye, but also pretty sturdy, at the back is just it's insane. If you look back at some of our play over the last 2 years, this has been a long time coming. And so the game against Leicester was so enjoyable because it was really one of the first times under Mikel Arteta that we were free flowing. We've had moments, bits and bobs, sometimes a half here, 25 minutes there, but it honestly looked like we could score at any time. And it really took me back to the days of Arsene Wenger, where we had just a bunch of creative midfielders out there just doing their thing. But the difference between Arteta and Arsene is that Arteta made sure to build that defensive foundation before. So we have a strong foundation and we built upon the creativity. And man, that was watching it back. I was like, because when you rewatch, you realize all the things that you missed. And so there were some performances that I thought maybe were a little bit underwhelming the first time I watched. But then when I rewatched, I realized that they were a lot more involved than I maybe gave them credit for in the beginning. So we're going to kind of go through the best and maybe, let's say, the best and suspect performances against Leicester, because again, it was not a wartless performance. It was not perfection. We definitely had some issues. We gave up 2 goals, and even Zinchenko said that that's too much for a defense to be giving up. So even though I feel great about what we did in attack, I do think that there needs to be some we need to look at the defense and kind of see how we can get that to be a little bit tighter. So we'll talk about some of the performances that didn't go so well and the ones that were really good. And let me tell you, it's the performances that weren't good are so few and far between. And what I said on my little match like hits and misses was that you could carry a couple of not so great performances when the rest of your team is playing at sevens, eights, and nines. When you have 6 or 7 of your players playing so well, if a performance like the other players are not quite at it, you can float those performances. So yeah, like it's few and far between. So I'm not here to pretend like I think we played badly when I don't. I am over the moon with this performance, but it wouldn't be She Knows Arsenal if we didn't get into the nitty gritty and actually give you know, a full like 360 look at the performance and not just say like, okay, because I was excited about the performance, there isn't anything to improve. So yeah, there's 108 of you guys in here already. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's see what you guys are saying. Ola says, is Edu really closing the Yeremy Pino deal? We'll talk about that in just a second. Don One says, Martinelli and Pino are on the same level. Not sure about this one. I hope lack of Partey cover doesn't bite us in the ASS. Bob says, hey, Jess. Hey to you as well. Hope you're doing well. Coach Dave says, hey, Jess. Hello, Dave. Bob says, I'm watching from Malawi. That's amazing. How is it out there? What's the weather like? Let me know. I've never been there, so let me know how it is out there right now. Blaze says, hi, Jess, how are you doing? I'm doing well. Like, I really can't complain. When Arsenal play well, I am a happy girl. When Arsenal are not playing well, I am just like, I am a wreck. I am mean. I'm not a nice person to be around. So as long as we're winning, I'm pretty good, So yeah, I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well. There's a lot of hello. So hello to everybody who's out there. Again, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It does get the channel noticed. Jeff says, does that suggest you watch for a second time and make substantive views rather than immediate emotional views. Well, that's the thing, is like my hits and misses are my immediate instant reaction. And then I go back and I rewatch, and then I'm fully like the type of person where if I feel like I got something wrong, I will say I got it wrong. And I think some people don't like the fact that there's these instant reactions that are kind of quite emotive. But I'm going to give you both because I feel like they both hold weight. Sometimes I do think your immediate reaction to things is actually your true reaction, and then sometimes you can convince yourselves of things later. So I think both views, the emotive view and then the looking at it after and, seeing if you maybe got some things wrong, both of those are perfectly fine, especially when, as a fan, it's important that you remember like fans are there to react. And so we don't have to be so overthink it all the time. Man United TV says, I hate Arsenal, but I love this YouTube channel. Well, I'm glad you love this channel, and I hate Man United. So we're on the same page there. We're on the same page there. Keba says, my sister, your fans, good luck. My Arsenal is me, Keba, so in Gambia. Oh, you're in Gambia. That's amazing. I'm so glad that like there's people from all around the world that kind of watch this channel and love it. So that's great, you guys. I really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get into it. There's 140 of you guys in here. Make sure you like it, subscribe, all those things. So just jumping straight into it, Sam Dean, I think, did a really good job highlighting Zinchenko's performance. And again, how we're kind of do things is like go through individual performances and then talk about some bigger topics in between there, and also hit on some transfer news in between there. Don't worry, I got it. Just make sure that you guys are paying attention and you guys are in that chat box letting me know what you guys think. So Sam Dean on Instagram did a really good breakdown of Zinchenko's role in the game against Leicester. And I have to say that on rewatch, I thought that he was influential the first time that I watched, but I thought that actually like it was an understatement that he was influential. Like he was very, very good against Leicester, especially in the first half. He had so many good touches. He was definitely playing in that midfield role, and he was just so good at recirculating the ball, recirculating possession, and he also allowed like Granit Xhaka to flourish in a different role. So he basically was saying, and this is from Sam Dean, so this isn't coming from me, but I just want to make sure that you guys, this is his words, saying that he's playing as a proper center mid. When Arsenal have the ball, sitting next to Partey in a 2, basically. Xhaka has so much more freedom. He's twice run in behind the Leicester defense, and he got the assist. Xhaka's goal was his 15th for Arsenal, but only the 5th that he scored inside the box. He started to play a more advanced role last season, and Zinchenko's arrival will help him do more of that. Arteta said post-game, this is really important, you guys, Arteta said post-game that Vieira will compete with Xhaka for that position. So there you have it. There you have it. So yeah, I thought that, Zinchenko was so good, and he definitely was playing midfield. He definitely was playing midfield. Like it wasn't like hard to see. It wasn't up for debate. He was in midfield, and him and Xhaka were doing a really good job of like swapping positions in some instances, but for the most part, Xhaka was pushed right up next to the attack, and Zinchenko was standing next to Thomas Partey, and he did a lot of the recirculating possession. So he wasn't doing like so many of those line breaking passes. They were more just really nice passes into our outlets to get us going and attack. And I thought he was just like insane. Like, I thought he was so good, where maybe against Crystal Palace, he was kind of getting exposed defensively. He was a lot better defensively in terms of his interceptions and the ability to kind of like anticipate things. He did some cutting out of passes, but let's not get it twisted. He's not a great one-on-one defender, but as long as you are dealing in possession, like you're more in possession, he is so good for us. And I know some people won't like this because they don't like when you put world-class players up against others and you compare them, but I do think he can be somewhat of like a Trent Alexander-Arnold for us. And what I mean by that is not that he's on the same level as Trent, but he's somebody that's probably not going to be great on defense, but what he gives us in attack is so good it's worth the risk, because he can help us unlock defenses. And his creativity as basically like a midfielder allows us to push more of our assets into attack. So this is just kind of like a still of kind of where everybody was. And as you can see on that left-hand side, right at the top, that's Zinchenko. Thomas Partey is kind of in the middle. And then you have Ben White here with the ball. And that's your three. You have your two, your three, and then your five. Granit Xhaka is way up there. He is way up there. And I thought he did a really good job, but Zinchenko's positioning helped him get into those positions. And so I really like the balance of those two there. And I thought that both of them did a really good job. Um, DJ Oni said our players need to learn from him how to pass and control the game. You can just tell that he's just a brilliant technical player. Just like you said, pace of pass, the texture on the ball, the way it arrives to, you know, the player that he's passing it to. He puts information on his passes. They have zip on them. And so yeah, he's somebody that his close control, like you said, and his passing are at a level that I think that we've lost at Arsenal over the years. We've had players like Zinchenko in the past. You know, we've had the Santis, we've had the Fabregases, we've had the Rosickis and the Klebs, and all these guys that had amazing technical skill. But over the years, we've really lost that. And so having 3 or 4 of these types of players out there has been a joy to watch. Don One says maybe play Zinni at home and Tierney away. You know, I do think there's a lot being made of, you know, whether or not Tierney fits. You know, I saw some tweets um, after the game, and people were really questioning whether or not like Tierney belongs at Arsenal and whether or not he can play at Arsenal. But if you notice that once Tierney came in, we did play a little bit differently, but he pushed into midfield and put in a really nice ball into Nketiah. Nketiah was offside, but he also, when he's fit, he can pass. He's not at the same technical level as Zinchenko, but the idea that he can't play with this Arsenal team is a fallacy. It just really is. He may be a better crosser, and maybe his game is a little bit different, but he definitely can play with this Arsenal team. And like you said, there'll be different circumstances where Tierney will fit better than Zinchenko. So we don't need to worry about it. I really feel icky about this idea that we need to do something about Tierney, or, you know, we need to be worried about Tierney because he can't play the same way. Arteta said himself that he wants players that play in the same positions that have different characteristics so that you can have different looks for the opposition. And that's exactly what we have with Zinchenko and Tierney. And quite frankly, we need more of it across the pitch. You know, we have to have like more of that. And I do like that more than having two very similar players in the same position, because then you don't really get that variety. So there's really no issue with Tierney, and it really annoys me that people are like, well, what are we going to do about Tierney if he doesn't fit? He looked fine to me. Like, I didn't see anything wrong with him. I thought he was good when he came on. Don One says Zinchenko inverted role was awesome, helping that midfield out. Daniel Chen says Arsenal's best purchase is Gabriel Jesus. We will have a long section on him. Jeff says Zinchenko never seems to lose the ball. He's very good in possession. Like, the guy was so good. Blue Radial says Zinni is real quality. It can't wait to see him when he's fully caught up. And that's also true, that still learning his teammates, still getting up to full fitness, you know, as he really beds himself in, I think he'll actually get better. Gabriel Jesus could possibly get better as well. So the fact that this is their second league performance for Arsenal and they look this way is a really, really good sign. Don One says allowing Xhaka to attack, more good stuff. Ty Jr. says Xhaka has been on smoke. Exactly. Like, it's you could see exactly what we were trying to do. And the balance was like perfect. And I know some people don't really like Ben White in that position, and, you know, because he doesn't do any overlapping and doesn't get any into the attack. But I think ultimately, in terms of the balance and what we're trying to do, I have no issue like with what we're trying to do at the moment. Oso says Zinchenko will only get better, and I love how it will go under the radar. Exactly. There's 220 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's get back into it. Guys, I worked really hard on like this presentation. Like, I don't know why. Just today I was like, you know what? I'm gonna work really hard on this presentation. So I'm kind of proud of it, not gonna lie. So just talking more about Zinchenko, some of you guys already mentioned this, but Zinchenko has made more passes than any other Arsenal player versus Leicester. That was 54 with a 96% of all of his attempted passes completed. So, like you guys were already saying, like he's very good in possession, and it wasn't necessarily like line breaking passes, but his circulation and his close control and his ability to control the tempo was really good. Where I thought Thomas Partey didn't really control the tempo as well, Zinchenko definitely was doing a lot more of that. And I also feel like that might have been why Odegaard was doing more of like the popping around the pitch and connecting, where Zinchenko was controlling the tempo. And that's perfectly fine when you have a team full of players that can do these things. Like it's not a big deal whether like who's doing it, you know? And so this is just kind of like a touch map for where they were. And like you can see, it's like right up against the touchline, but it's also quite central and quite high. And so, I mean, for me, that's a really good sign of like recruitment and what we've been trying to do and it really just working. And so, yeah, you can see those touches. He had a lot of touches, 96% pass completion. And he was just very influential in that first half specifically. And so when you look at like how this compares to where Tierney is, and what where his 60 touches were. So Tierney had 60 touches, Zinchenko had 68 touches, and you can see Zinchenko is on the left and Tierney is on the right. And you can see that Tierney's touches are um, a lot more on the left primarily. He does get a little bit closer to the touch line, each touch line. You know, he's a little bit more from box to box, from end line to end line, or you know what I mean? And Zinchenko is a little bit more like from the touch line to the center. So you can kind of see the difference in the way that they play. Neither of these are bad. Like, no, to me, neither is better than other, but I just think you can see like now we have different options, and I love it. Like, I love it so much, So yeah, I'm loving our options and I want us to do more of this. I really do. So now kind of moving forward from Zinchenko, the obvious like other like there was like maybe 4 or 5 performances that really stood out. But another performance that really stood out against Leicester was Martinelli. And so I thought this was a good segue into the Martinelli conversation where Zinchenko actually said that he is incredible. This is him talking about Martinelli. He is incredible. He is a real diamond, and I am pretty sure he has an unbelievable future. And so Martinelli has went to another level this season. You can really see it now, where before it was very much like with Martinelli, it was more raw, that really raw talent. And you could tell like he had the speed, he had the eye for goal, he had the ability to get past his man. But what he didn't have was more of like the ability to control tempo. He didn't have that real playmaking ability. And so there was a period of time with Martinelli where, of course, you had the moment where he had gotten that long-term injury. And then when he came back in, he wasn't immediately selected. And then people were trying to say that Arteta hated him. But ultimately, also, Arteta wanted him to become a better player and give him more tools to his toolbox. Of course, you could have just used him as is. You could have just used him as is. Martinelli was brilliant the moment he came to Arsenal. But I do think Arteta has really kind of he smoothed him out and also made him a better player in terms of the things that he can actually do. And so in this game, you saw his eye for goal as well as his playmaking ability. His dead balls are like his corners are so good. And that's a skill, to be able to deliver crosses in the way that Martinelli does is so good. Exactly. High tech J, that's the word I wasn't able to get, but he's refined him. He's kept the raw ability and also added things to it. Where I do think there was people that were saying like he had taken away that raw ability, but I think it was just kind of like inside while he was trying to learn the coaching part while Arteta was coaching him a little bit more. And so he is just ready to explode. I mean, this guy is ridiculous. His ability to be like a playmaking forward, but also be devastating in front of goal is what the best forwards are actually like. You look at somebody like Mohamed Salah and Mane, for a long time, it wasn't just that they can put the ball in the back of the net, is that they could create their own chances and create chances for each other. And so I look at Martinelli as somebody that has the ability to really get to that next level. And so, yeah, Martinelli was absolutely insane against Leicester, and Wesley Fofana looked not like an 80 million pound defender against him. He had him on toast. And so, yeah, Martinelli, you can tell that he's really been working on himself. And this is somebody who's only 21 years old. So what could he actually become? So these are Martinelli's stats, from the game. He had 1 goal, 1 shot on target, 4 chances created. Oh, I don't know why. Oh, my little emojis didn't come up, but he had 4 chances created. That was the most in the game. One big chance created, 3 completed dribbles. That was the most in the game. 92% pass accuracy, 1 interception, 3 recoveries, and 4 ground duels won. That is a very well-rounded game for a forward. It's not just the goals and the assists and things like that. It's the fact that he pressed Leicester to death, and his goal was actually started by himself winning the ball back in midfield. And that's really what Martinelli has. Like, what he lacked last season was not, the hard work and all that kind of stuff. He's always had that, but it was the refining the small things, the passing, the playmaking, and really when he gets in front of goal, calm himself down so that he can put the ball in the back of the net. And that finish against Leicester was so good, weak foot, and it was one of those where it's like, I love when players do this. They shoot when it looks like they're going to pass. Like, he could have easily passed it to Zinchenko on his left. He could have easily done that, but he didn't. He made sure that, like, or it may have been Tierney, my bad. I don't know who it was, but there was somebody on his left and he could have passed, and instead he shot instead. And so it took Leicester by surprise. Their goalkeeper wasn't ready for it, and boom, it was in the left-hand corner of the goal. And he had such an insane game against Leicester. And what you're really seeing is a combination of the two of him, and Gabriel Jesus is more like a front two than anything. It's like 2 strikers up there, moving and shaking, getting into different positions. They're all over the place, left, right, and center, and they're difficult to deal with. So, yeah, I mean, the two of them were absolutely insane. And so, yeah, I thought Martinelli had a man of the match performance. You could give it between him or Gabriel Jesus or Xhaka, really, but it was a man of the match performance. And this is the 2 performances on the bounce where I think he really shone. John P says, if we do get into trouble, Jess, with injuries, touch wood, I'm feeling more confident of Martinelli doing a job up front. I like that. Jeff says, wow, where has this change come from? Great show so far. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I feel like mostly I do decent shows, but like, I'm not always positive about Arsenal. But there's not really anything to be negative about at the moment. So, yeah, Coach Dave says Jesus' presence is going to take his game to another level. I do think having somebody like Jesus up there is making everybody better. DJ Oni says Jess Martinelli is putting fear into fullbacks and even fans of other teams. My Chelsea fan friend said he's scared of him. Good. And I think they were kind of seeing that there was something there last season, the way he played up against Cancelo, the way he played up against Trent. I know Trent's not a good one-on-one defender, but it does take something special to do what he did against those defenders and those teams in those difficult matches. He really was one of the main players that shone against those 2 teams. And so Martinelli's not afraid of anybody. And he was showing that last season. He just needed a little bit more, like you guys said, refining. And so, yeah, like, he looked really good. Sports Gamer Boy says Fofana looked like a poor man's Gabriel Paulista. I love that. Oya Talani says it will be so lovely to see ESR step up to the Martinelli challenge and improve as well. Well, I mean, that's the thing, is Martinelli stepped up to the ESR challenge. ESR was kind of like the holder of the left wing position. Martinelli was trying to fight his way back into the team. And once he kind of got in, I think it was also made easier because ESR couldn't stay fit. But now ESR has to find his place in this team. And I don't necessarily know whether it's at left wing or if it's at left 8 or whatever, but ESR does need to kind of go to that next level. And so, yeah, Martinelli right now is kind of the holder of that left wing position until somebody else can show that they can play better than him. And that's just, yeah, I mean, he was so good. Oyatalani says, of all the young players at Arsenal, Martinelli is the one I can give Arteta some credit for. Fair enough. Cloud says, yeah, he's pretty much turning into a playmaking forward. And yeah, he is. I mean, he can do the defensive stuff. He can do, putting the ball in the back of the net as well as creating for his teammates. And so that just shows like where he could actually go, So there's 300 of you guys in here. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Don says ESR is class. He will be back. And Alex says ESR is not bang average. I mean, he's not average. He just needs to stay fit, and that's pretty much, what it is at this point. So moving on, the next big performance I think we need to talk about is Granit Xhaka. And this kind of leans into some of the transfer talk. So if you guys are here for transfer talk, we're going to kind of veer into that conversation here. But Granit Xhaka had probably the best performance he's ever had for Arsenal against Leicester, and he was playing a different role, and he looked really good in it. He started to inch forward last season, so it's not like we haven't seen him do this before, but he hasn't done it with this level of success where he's getting into the box and actually making things happen. He had 1 goal and 1 assist, 2 chances created, 89% pass accuracy, 2 long balls, 1 hit post. That was a really good back post run by him. That could have easily been a goal. 3 duels won, 100% aerial duels won, and 0 times dribbled past. And so, like Martinelli, had a very well-rounded performance where what he did off the ball matched what he did on the ball. And so, yeah, I think he really like shown what he can do. And I think he brought up the level of like, for a lot of us, it's really important for Arsenal to bring in another midfielder. We may or may not do that. But the requirement now to unseat Granit Xhaka is a lot higher now than it was before the season started. I think maybe the feeling, especially from me, was that somebody like Tielemans could come in and unseat him. But as the season is kind of going on, I'm thinking, could he though? Like, I think Tielemans is a great player and he could do a job at Arsenal and improve us in terms of depth and quality. But if Granit Xhaka can add goals to his game and can really affect the attack, which is really my main focus when I was thinking about what we should be doing in that position, is that we lack goals, we lacked assists in that position, that position. If Granit Xhaka can add that into his toolbox, then the level of the person coming in potentially has to go up. The requirement has to go up. So it can't just be any old buddy. And he looked way better than Tielemans, I have to say, and I'm one of those types of people that's like, if I think somebody's playing well, regardless of how I feel about them, like in totality, I can give them that. And Granit Xhaka, from a leadership perspective, they said that he's vice captain. From a being able to do things box to box, to be able to be defensively sound and do the off the ball thing and the on ball thing. If he can add goals and assists to his game, it's going to be really hard to get him out of this team. And he had a very, very good performance against Leicester, just like he did against Crystal Palace. So yeah, Granit is just somebody that is going up a level, and he seems really happy and settled. So I would not assume that he's going to leave. Football Powerhouse, Power Hour, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, okay, this presentation deserves a like and a subscribe. Thank you. I really liked, I did spend time on it. I was like, I think they're going to like this. Sayahid says, Sahid says, Jacquinho or Jacadino. Yeah, I mean, he looked really good. Don One says Xhaka was outstanding. Crispy Rice says Xhaka is quieting his critics. Georgie says, look at those Xhaka stats. Jeez, I mean, they're good. Coho says people are forgetting how ESR was last season. He will improve in an improving team. I agree. A cow says ESR will score playing Odegaard's position. Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. You're also saying Xhaka is becoming a box-to-box Arsene envision him. When he first came in, Arsene did say that he was a box-to-box midfielder. We never really got to see it in its entirety. And I still think, I think there's still questions around, could we not bring in somebody that's, there were moments where, like, Zinchenko passed him the ball and he kind of didn't have the ability to dribble past somebody and make and to get past the marker in that way. Like Xhaka, when the players around him are in good positions and the triangles are right and everybody's kind of playing well, he can do that job very well. But I still feel like there's a level to go up in that position. But again, going back to what Sam Dean said in his piece again about Zinchenko, was that Fabio Vieira is the player that's being looked at that's going to be fighting for that position against Granit Xhaka. And with kind of like the Athletic underpinning that news with, the feeling around the Tielemans deal is that the only way Tielemans comes in is if Granit Xhaka leaves. I'm actually at the point now where I don't actually think Tielemans is going to come in. I actually think that, you know, he's just somebody that, we maybe looked at the beginning of the window, thought that he would probably be the right fit, and maybe Fabio Vieira changed that. And Granit Xhaka's form and his ability to add those goals and that ability to go forward into his game has made it maybe almost redundant for Tielemans to come in. And I still think there needs to be an improvement in midfield. My idea was always that if we weren't going to improve in Thomas Partey's position as like an option behind him that's better than El Neni, then we did need to upgrade upon Granit Xhaka. But if Fabio Vieira is being looked at as, the player that's going to be fighting Granit Xhaka for that position, then I'm okay with that as long as we make sure that we still look at somebody for backup for Thomas Partey, because I still believe he's a single point of failure. I know he didn't have a great game against Leicester or Crystal Palace. I don't think he was at the peak of his powers, but he was still better than Ndidi, and I think that shows what his level is. Even when he's not playing at 100%, he's still better than most of the central defensive midfielders in the league. And without him, we do look like a much different team in midfield. So I expect Granit Xhaka to stay. I actually don't think we'll get Tielemans at this point, like based on what they've said. Fabio Vieira is going to be fighting Granit Xhaka for that position. And so Tielemans may not come in because Granit's not leaving. So we'll have to see what happens and see if we come back to that, or maybe that's Arsenal feeding the Athletic information. You know, I don't know, but it doesn't feel like that's a deal that's going to get done. Now, there is another like small rumor out there, and I have to say that I'm not quite sure if this is something that can get done this window, but Arsenal are said to be looking at Moses Caicedo from Brighton, and Caicedo looks like he's going to be better than Basuma. I think he's a better all around. He'll become a better all around midfielder than Basuma is, and he's so good. But if you were to bring him in, like I do think that would solve the Thomas Partey situation. I think if Thomas Partey were to be gone at Arsenal for whatever reason, we would have somebody that could step up at a Premier League level that could play at the base of your midfield without any issues whatsoever. He could also play the 8 position if you wanted to go in a different direction, but ultimately that would free up Sambi to kind of play left 8, and we wouldn't have to rely upon El Neni, who just like honestly, he just cannot play that position for a significant amount of time if Thomas Partey were to be gone. So, Arsenal are said to be looking at Moises Caicedo. I will get like it's been like multiple. I think Football London put it out. Ekram Connor put it out as well. The Daily Mirror put it out. So it's not anybody that like we should start like getting super excited about it. But this may be a look to like maybe next summer or something. But I do think Arsenal need to be looking at another option in the base of midfield. Regardless, if it's not in Xhaka's position, then it needs to be in Thomas Partey's position, because we are still at a point with this team, even though I'm excited about the players and how they're developing, where we are Thomas Partey absence away from looking completely different. So yeah, I think that's something that I would be excited by. I think Caicedo is so good. But Brighton is also like, how they are with selling their players. They just brought in Caicedo last summer, very similarly to Cucurella, and you saw how much it took to get Cucurella from Brighton to Chelsea. So they wouldn't be selling him for anything cheap. And yeah, so um, I think that that would be a player that we should be looking at, but I'm not sure it gets done this summer, but it's something to look out for because yeah, we need something there. Like we need something there. I just feel like if Thomas Partey gets injured or is gone, like we're going to be looking at it like why didn't we do it? You know, we knew because it's been two seasons in a row where his injury has significantly like hurt our season, you know. So yeah, I think we need to address it in some way. Alistair says, I find that Yakubu is not that player that Thomas was. Um, oh, I hear what you're saying. John P says, agree, Jess, on this, but with technical players like Zinchenko, El Neni might look better if you can just hand it off to him every time. I think even with the thing about it is if it's a significant absence, you know, I think El Neni can do a job for a game or two. He can do a job at the beginning of cups. But we're talking about a team that is fighting against some really good teams for a top four spot. So the margins are going to be fine. And just like they were last season. And if you tell me that the margin could potentially be a game or two where we have to play El Neni, you know, because Thomas Partey is not there, and we drop a point here or there because of it, I think we have set ourselves up for failure again. So I do think he might look better in a better team. But the amount of times that Thomas Partey touches the ball, you have to imagine that if you just completely bypass that player altogether, or you let El Neni touch the ball that amount of times, you're going to get a drop off of quality that's going to be significant. I think that that's the biggest drop off in quality in our team, bigger than anything else. I think it's bigger than Rob Holding to Ben White or whatever. You know, it's much bigger than that. You know, because it's just the amount of times that Thomas Partey touches the ball. I just don't think El Neni has the ability. And I know Thomas Partey's been off. I know people don't want to talk about Thomas Partey for obvious reasons, but just from a footballing perspective, El Neni can't even do 50% of the job that Thomas Partey does in that position. So for me, it's something that has to get addressed. If it doesn't, I do think it's going to come back. You know, we will be looking at it again. You know, like why didn't we do it? Kawani says Arsenal soon has Brazil starting lineup. Um, let's see. What are you guys saying? The Mad Hatter says Kane doesn't deserve that goal. They always get the calls. M says if Jesus gets injured, who is the back? Most certainly it's not bang average Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah is not bang average. You know, I have to say that like my opinion on Eddie Nketiah has changed, you know, in terms of like you know, how close he is to being somebody that we can rely upon. I think again, like it's not the biggest drop off from the biggest drop off in the team is El Neni and Thomas Partey. That is the biggest drop off. But in terms of like Eddie, if you get Eddie service, will he score goals? Yes. Like he will. We saw it last season. Will he be able to do all the flicks and tricks and the technical parts of what Gabriel Jesus can do? No. But I think you're almost kidding yourself if you see Eddie Nketiah as a bang average footballer from what we've seen over the last 4 months or so. He's definitely improved quite a bit. So yeah, but I do think that's another reason why you need to bring in another attacker, period. Doesn't have to be somebody that plays central, but just somebody else that we make sure that we have the goals and the rotation there. But I don't actually think Eddie Nketiah is bang average anymore. I think we have to give him more credit than that. Or I will do it. If your opinion is that, then I can't change it. Let's see what you guys are saying. Nevermore says Eddie seems to be learning a lot from Jesus. He looked good when he has come on. He has looked good, you know. So, but let's get back into this. So yeah, Xhaka's stats were really, really good in that game. He looked really good on the eye. So yeah, good for him. And I just pulled some tweets from, you know, some Arsenal accounts, and they had put some, you know, these things out here. I'll just read them to you. This is from Daniel Cuts, journal slash says, I know Arsenal probably need another midfielder, but granted Xhaka is far from being replaced if yesterday is anything to go by. Unreal at covering Zinchenko, getting forward and taking the ball over. thought he was sensational. And Sambi, which is at Sambi48, says we don't need to replace Granit Xhaka. We need to find Xhaka's backup. I found many tweets like this. I found many tweets like this. And he's changing a lot of people's minds, which I think is fine. I do think there will be a moment where we'll look at Granit Xhaka again and maybe say like, okay, we may need something different, but maybe that could be Fabio Vieira. We haven't seen him play for us yet. But I also saw some tweets like this that said, have nothing against Granit Xhaka and is a key part of the side, but hate when our fans act like he can't be improved. Still need an 8, whether it's in rotation of him or start ahead. Now, I love when a player changes people's minds. I really do. But what I honestly think is going to happen now, especially based on what Sam Dean said, is that the way that we play that position now is so different than the way it was played before. It's no longer a double pivot, it's a free 8. We were playing free 8s against Leicester. That was the most like that's the most clear example of it was Arsenal versus Leicester at the Emirates, where Odegaard was going from left to right. He was kind of just free doing his thing, and Xhaka was as well. If you watch Fabio Vieira play, he can do that. Sambi can also do that as well. So maybe we do have it covered. And if the club feels like we have that position covered, maybe they're looking to do something different. So I'm coming around to the idea it's very difficult for me to come around to this idea, but I haven't seen Fabio Vieira play for Arsenal yet. But I have this feeling that he'll play that position and it'll look natural like he was supposed to be playing there. If you watched him play for Porto, even though he played so many different positions, he often would come deep and dictate play from deep, quite similarly to what Granit Xhaka does. But he also gets right up against the box and makes these nice little incisive passes into the attackers or take shots. And so you can see, I think you are going to see a midfield, maybe Thomas Partey, Odegaard, and Vieira. I think you might see it based on the way that we're playing now, which is different. And a lot of people talk about Vieira's physicality. He's really good off the ball. He's definitely not somebody that's going to be, making crunching tackles. But if you guys have noticed, our games are not really about crunching tackles. We try to possess the ball. We play in little triangles. We press hard off the ball, but it's not really about banging people about, So Fabio Vieira will fit right in with the players like Martinelli and Jesus and Odegaard that aren't particularly big, but will press you right off the ball. And so, yeah, Vieira, like if you didn't see the Tifo did a little video on him about where he plays and things like that. But there's just a lot of messaging, like things that we're hearing and things that we're seeing that I think the form, like you can kind of see like the story is forming. Fabio Vieira might be the player in that position. And we may not see a Tielemans come in, Nevermore says the reason why I say we need a target man is because sometimes we are going to need that other option. Well, I think you're never really going to get everything that you want in one window, and this might be something that we don't get done this window, but I'm very confident with Arsenal improving plan A and maybe not having so much of a plan B. But if you improve plan A, that we could beat 80% of the Premier League last season with plan A. We only looked at plan B maybe 20% of the time. Now we'll be able to beat 90% of the Premier League with plan A, maybe even more, pretty comfortably as well. So 10% of the time you may feel like you need a plan B, but I think it's better to not have an incomplete plan A and then bring in a plan B that you're not even going to really be using. Because right now a target man is not starting over Gabriel Jesus. He's just not. And I don't think you want to put Gabriel Jesus on the wings either. So it might be something that you look at next summer to kind of complete everything. But right now, I think it was more important to improve plan A because plan A, if we make it better, you won't really need much of a plan B. It's very a la Pep, that one. Pep didn't really have a plan B until like now. He played and made plan A so perfect that they rarely ever lost with it. Airy Heart says, if we get another CDM, then we don't need Tielemans. I agree. I think at that point, you see all the options that we have there. And I think you can make a very solid case that with Odegaard, with ESR, that can kind of play in that position, with Sambi and Vieira and Zinchenko that can all play in those eights, and Xhaka, that you may not need to bring in a Tielemans. You might want to bring in a specialist CDM that can underpin Thomas Partey should he be absent. Colin Young says the drop off you mentioned from Partey to Elneny is precisely the reason that Milinkovic-Savic makes so much sense. See, I'll only push back on that because Milinkovic-Savic is not necessarily a player that plays at the base of a midfield. He's more of like an 8. And he receives, like if you look at his statistics, he receives more passes from deep than he actually makes. And that's kind of like a sign that he's maybe not a deep lying midfielder. He may be able to be converted there. But I think what we're looking at is more of a player like of a Tonali type, somebody that can play at the base of a midfield, that can dictate play from there, dictate tempo, but also, maybe play a little bit of defense as well. I think that's why they never really looked at Basuma, is because he's not a player that can dictate play from deep in midfield. So Milinkovic-Savic is a great player, but I don't necessarily see him as the deepest in midfield, even though he's big. So yeah, and that's why it's hard. Ben Odinson is saying it here, that Odinson, says the problem with the specialized CDM is it's hard to find what Party does. If can get it done, it'll be expensive. And that's why if you look at somebody like Caicedo, like he's going to be really expensive. The players that can do it are it's a small group of players that can actually do it, where you don't have to put somebody else next to them in a pivot. So when I say a specialist DM, it's not necessarily just somebody that can break up play. It's a central defensive midfielder that can play our way. And there's not a lot of them. So there you go. There's almost 400 of you guys in here, which is insane. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, moving forward, we have to talk about the main man, and the main man is Gabriel Jesus. He had another really, really good game against Leicester. And what I like about him is he's somebody that could be really, really involved, but also kind of go missing and then burst back onto the scene. I don't necessarily feel like strikers need to be involved all the time, but they need, if they kind of have to have that surprise factor as well. And he kind of does that too. Right before his first goal, he had kind of went missing a little bit. He wasn't really touching the ball as much. And then bam, he was right there. He had one big chance created, 2 goals, 2 assists, 3 key passes, 3 successful dribbles, 3 shots on target, 4 attempted dribbles, 7 shots, 66% aerial duels won, and 79% pass accuracy. So a very busy day at the office for Gabriel Jesus, but he was freaking good. He was good. Like on rewatch, you just see, like, for me with Gabriel Jesus, it's always been the incisiveness, the sharpness, the quickness, the decision. Like, he's just a player that I want all of our players to look at him and say, I need to be moving like this. I need to be moving like this. For too long, we've had players that kind of do it. It's just like, oh, I'm languid. Oh, I'm this and that. Like, no, move with intention, move, and he does a lot of just movement and quick, sharp, boom, 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 boom. And when he makes a decision, he makes it. And at some point, people will realize that when he's receiving the ball with his back to goal, he's going to flick it behind his standing foot and somebody will be there to receive that ball. But he is so good. He's so good. And as I'm telling you right now, like, I know people did not think he was world class before he signed for Arsenal because he was known as this, like, not so great player that couldn't get into Pep's team. His numbers are too good to be saying that he was a flop at City. He definitely wasn't. But I think he can reach his world class potential at Arsenal if he continues to play like this. He's somebody that's going to be right up there with the goals at the end of the season. He is a world-class talent, and he may just be able to unlock it at Arsenal. You're seeing the beginning of it. Watch this space. Karthik says, I wanted the hat trick, but could have provided Saka an easy tap-in. Felt Saka was getting lonely. Even Odegaard went to the left side. Don One says, the way he goes past players is great to watch. Let's see. Eddie says, Ibrahim Sangare. Colin Young says, box to box. I guess you guys are talking about maybe Milinkovic-Savic. Let's see. Mikey says, being smaller, Jesus has to be elusive to evade challenges. Don One says Jesus could have scored 6. Look, he had one that came from Saka. He had 2 that actually came from Saka. One that was like an actual pass from Saka that went right up by the post. And then he had the other one where I think Saka was a deflection off of Saka's shot, and it was on the back post and he hit it in the side net. But the one I really wanted him to get was when he absolutely tore Johnny Evans to shreds. That would have been probably up there for like early goals of the season, because it was just everything from the Ramsdale pass, like those passes that he does are so pinpoint right to Gabriel Jesus. He chests it down, he kind of holds Johnny Evans and lets the ball bounce and then just turns him and he's just left for dead. And then, Gabriel Jesus takes a touch and he's about to hit it and Ndidi and intercepts it. And I was like, damn, that would have been a good goal. That would have been so good. But nevertheless, I thought he had a near perfect game. You can't ask for more than 2 goals and 2 assists. And let's not like, Leicester is not a shit team. I know that anytime we play a team and kind of just walk all over them, people will say like, oh, Leicester's not any good. Leicester is a good team. They have good players at the top end of the pitch. They really do. But at the same time, we were really dominant in that game statistically. And when you use the eye test, we were really, really good. And I do think players like Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus made that gap bigger, where the gap was a little bit smaller last season, even though we were a much better team than them last season in terms of like where we finished. I thought when we played them, we didn't let them score and we scored 2 goals, but there wasn't this much of a gap. And I think that's the difference with your players improving as well as bringing in really high quality talent. That gap just gets so much bigger. And so Gabriel Jesus really did that for us. Don One says Jesus played 27 games for the Champions League last year. So much for being a bench warmer. I mean, it was just like a really silly narrative, to be honest, that Gabriel Jesus was some crap player. First of all, most Manchester City players, regardless if they start or not, walk into most of the top 6's starting lineup. That's the reality. They're just that good. And so, Gabriel Jesus is still, he's not inexperienced, but he's still young and in like the prime of his career. And in the next 2 seasons, he can become a completely different. The narrative around him can be completely different. And so, yeah, like I said, watch the space. Crispy Rice says not only his offensive capabilities, but his pressing makes him a constant menace. Exactly. Andre says Arsenal are planning to hold talks with Brighton for Moses Caicedo. We think this is true. We just kind of went over that in the last section. So if you want to just rewind back to that, you'll see what we're saying about that. But I'm not sure how reliable that is. It may be something that we're just looking at or something that, but it's going to be expensive. So, we just have to watch and see how that plays out. And I still think we have to sell some players in order to make that happen. Matt G says, I'm excited to see how Jesus will improve all of our attackers. I think he's just so good. I love him so much. Like, because you guys know I wanted him at Arsenal for a while, so I'm happy that it's working out so far. And people are starting to come around to the idea that he's the guy for us. So this is from Scott from Arsenal Vision. That underscore crab. And this is just a little bit more of like just where he was and where he received most of his passes. He received most of his passes on the left-hand side, which I think makes a lot of sense because Zinchenko was on that side. And most of our connection from Martinelli to Gabriel Jesus was on that side. And so our left-hand side was really strong. He received 31 passes, so he was very kind of in what we were doing. I remember there were games where Aubameyang touched the ball maybe 8 times, or 10 times, but Gabriel Jesus was just more involved in everything that we're doing. These are just kind of where his passes were. We're just going to kind of quickly go through this. And then his interceptions on the right-hand side. He only had one like successful one. He had a ball recovery kind of like deep in midfield, and he had 2 fouls as well, and a tackle that didn't come off. But he's defensively in and around everything that we're trying to do. He receives a lot of the passes. He makes passes as well. He's just an all-around forward. It's more than just him being a striker. He's just a really good forward. And I love that. And it's working for us right now. let's see. Now just going to like kind of like all around the season. I know it's just two games, but I don't give a shit. I'm gonna do what I want. Gabriel Jesus this season has the highest XG, out of all players in the Premier League in 2.06. Most goals and assists at 4, most touches in the opposition box at 26, and most take-ons completed in 9. So he's making a play. Like he's making a little play, to be somebody that people have to really take seriously this season. And I think he looks really happy. He said that he wasn't unhappy at Manchester City, but he just wanted to play. But I think he just fits us really well in what we're trying to do. And he's also somebody that's been added to the leadership group. And a lot of people, I think, did feel like he should have came straight in and became the captain. But I think just having him a part of the leadership group, him and Granit Xhaka and Odegaard, there's a nice balance there of somebody that's been there and done that before in an elite environment, somebody who's the captain in regards to what the players think, which is Granit Xhaka, and then the captain in what the manager wants in terms of the coach on the field. You have a nice balance there of 3 players that kind of hit everything in terms of what you want in a captain. So yeah, I really think Gabriel Jesus looks so good with us, and I'm so glad we got him. And that's why he was our most important signing, because I don't see many other players having this level of impact for Arsenal. John P says, big deal, Jesus coming straight in and being vice captain. M says, former Arsenal flop Jack Wilshere got his contract canceled at Arsenal, then got rejected by Bournemouth in the championship. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? Kavino Latino says, feel Zinni should be in that leadership group, or KT. Well, we don't know who else is in it. Sometimes it's contingent on like maybe like 5 players or so. So we don't know who else is in it, but we know that's the core. Alistair says maybe our players should engage in some histrionics when fouled. We might get those calls from referees. I doubt it. I really doubt it. There's 375 of you guys in here, so like the video and subscribe to the channel. So let's just keep moving here. So let's move on to the right-hand side. In this game, there was some criticism around our right side. And, I want your guys' take on this, because I think last season there was a lot of complaining about the left-hand side not being as potent or devastating as the right-hand side. The right-hand side last season was where everything came out. Like it was Saka and Odegaard, and even like Lacazette and Thomas Partey would kind of veer onto that side. Tomiyasu was on that side. So it was kind of viewed as the stronger side, and that's where a lot of our attacks went through. I do think Martinelli suffered because the left-hand side didn't tick as much. You had Kieran Tierney there some of the times, Tavares over there on that side. Xhaka had some off moments adjusting to this new left 8 position. So now against Crystal Palace and against Leicester, we're seeing a switch to the left-hand side being maybe a little bit more influential than the right. Personally, I don't see this as an issue, because I think there's going to be games where they start to really focus on our left, and then our right-hand side will become more influential again. I also think on rewatch, I thought Odegaard looked a lot better than what he looked like when the game was going on. He was very involved and had a lot of touches in this game. It was just Zinchenko was more influential in terms of our buildup and recirculating possession than he was. So Odegaard didn't have that role. His role was a little bit different. He was able to float around and just kind of be a part of the 1-2s and try to get things in and around the corner so that we could create chances. And so maybe Saka did suffer a little bit from that, because we weren't really filtering things onto Saka. But what I will say is about Saka and Odegaard is that they played really hard. It wasn't like they didn't do anything or they had bad performances in terms of like all around performances. I thought defensively, Saka was really good, like getting back and intercepting things. I thought defensively he was good. And then Odegaard, I have a stat coming up, but he was running around as well. So the right-hand side is something that's becoming of a focus. I also have an inkling on why this is. I think it has something to do with ESR as well, but I'll read you guys these tweets. This is coming from Half Spaces. Arsenal's right-hand side really needs to start clicking into gear. Odegaard and Saka have been off it recently, especially Saka. Recently is only 2 games, but whatever. The left-hand side is carrying too much of the load. The right isn't as threatening and devastating as last season. So some people were feeling like that was a thing. And then Tom Gooner 84 said, I've seen some people moaning about our right being ineffective. It's been ineffective because teams are terrified of Saka and doing everything they can to nullify him, leaving space for Martinelli, Xhaka, and Zinchenko, who have been taking full advantage. So I tend to maybe agree a little bit more with Tom Gooner than half spaces. I do think I've also seen a certain section of the fan base that feel like the right hand side would be better without Odegaard there and ESR there because he would be overlapping with Saka. And so I do think that there's an ulterior motive with some of this stuff that, okay, this is my reason for pushing ESR into Odegaard's position. Newsflash, ESR is not taking Odegaard's position at any time soon. Like it's just not. You know what I mean? Like Odegaard is the captain and he played really well and ESR can't stay fit. So the idea that he should be playing in that position over Odegaard right now just feels like an agenda and nothing more than that. But just on face value, the right hand side was not as devastating, but it didn't matter. We scored 4 goals. Saka was also like he was involved in some of the things that we were doing. Had Jesus, finished the chance that Saka created on the right hand side, he would have had an assist. So it's very fine margins where Saka could have had an assist and we could be looking at his game a little bit differently. But the right hand side where Saka plays is more isolated because the right back does not overlap. And that's just the reality of it. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's about the way that we play. Maybe when Tomiyasu plays there, it'll be a little bit different. But I definitely don't see it as something that we need to be like alarmed about or about to like cry about. And I think that this to me seems like just a general overreaction to Saka not being very as influential as other players, but also kind of like an agenda to try to bring ESR into Odegaard's position. So that's where I'm kind of at right there. Jeff says Tom makes sense here. I think he does as well. Yeah, Xhaka's header would have been Saka's assist as well. So Saka could have had 2 assists in this game, had just been like some like fine margins there. So I don't think if you watch Odegaard in that game, not only was he running around like nobody's business, but he was involved in a lot of things that we were doing. He just wasn't circulating the possession because Thomas Partey and Zinchenko specifically were doing more of that. His role was different. It wasn't a problem. Cal says it's Odegaard's duty to circulate the ball to the right. Saka was not getting the ball from the midfield. I don't agree with that. I don't really agree with that. And I think Odegaard is probably one of the most responsible ones on the pitch. If that's what he was supposed to be doing, he would have done it. But we were primarily on the left-hand side because that's where the space was. Every time Saka got the ball, there was like 3 guys on him. So I think it's less about Odegaard doing the wrong things than just the way that the game panned out, and it's not really something to be like worried about. Blaze says that I like Pepe as a player, but why Pepe stands are always so loud when Saka played good. I don't know. Pepe stands. I don't know why you'd stand Pepe. It's weird. The Mad Hatter says, "Oh, is the engine. He does it well. He might be quiet, but he controls the game." Ben Odinson says, "One thing I'm glad on is we have 2 option fullbacks who can attack and 2 who can hold. And the win, best to have options." Exactly. I love options. Crispy Rice says, in the last game, our flow naturally went to the left. That's kind of how I feel as well. It just naturally went there. It wasn't, Odegaard wasn't doing his job. It was just, that's just how the game went. Coach Dave says, I don't think Saka should be strictly a winger. Well, I mean, you trying to get him back to left back or something? Because I don't think that's going to happen. Mikey B says, with Zinchenko in the team, the left would have been considered the more attacking side. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. Idiani says it's not an agenda, to be fair. It's about angles, I think. ESR played the role a couple of times. Burnley comes to mind. He's also fast. And Ampedal. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't see where the rest of your statement is. You were about to say something about Odegaard, but I think we're a little bit premature trying to potentially give ESR that right center mid position when he can't stay fit. That's my main problem with it. And then I just feel like Odegaard does a really good job and is often criticized because there's just a section of the fan base that want ESR to play that position. And I know that because I'm in the group chats. So I know where this is coming from. But ultimately, if you do think that ESR could add something different, I'm sure maybe they've used him in that position and maybe he just hasn't shown enough in training where he can actually make a play for it. But I think Smith Rowe is looked at as somebody that can play that position. And all or nothing, on the little board, it said Odegaard and Smith Rowe in that position. So, maybe there'll be a chance where we'll see it, maybe in, some of the cups. I think ESR is a great player, but I think he's a little bit far away from being the natural, problem solver for the Odegaard situation. That's not a situation to me. So that's just, it for me. And then so here's some Mo stats. I thought that this was, Martin Odegaard covered 12.25 kilometers yesterday, the most by any player in the match. Xhaka was second. And I know people are like, I don't care, about running, but running is important. And it wasn't just him running like a headless chicken. He was pressuring people. He was getting in and amongst those triangles with Gabriel Jesus and making things happen. And yeah, his job was a little bit different, but I thought that he on rewatch, he was a lot better than what people thought. There's 374 of you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. The Matt Hatter says, "Oh, is the fuel. The little things he does goes unnoticed. He keeps pace." Yeah. Jeff says, "Jess, this has been the best show since you started the channel. Well done, you. Great substance and preparation. Well done, you. Wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. Thank you." Crispy Rice says, "We should give ESR a run on the right-hand side eventually, though. When he gets fit, he might get an opportunity." That's kind of where I sit with it. Maybe in cups he can do it, but then also people say that, and this is very similar to what happened with Pepe. And when he gets the chance, he has to take it. And he gets a chance in a cup to play in that position, he has to take it. He can't be missing. And I have to be honest with you guys is that, early on when ESR was playing in that position, he did really well when he was playing just like in a natural 10 position. When we played versus Brentford at the beginning of last season, when we lost, he was one of the best players out there playing in a 10 role. And he thrived, doing well there. But since then, I do feel like in that role, he has been quite quiet when he's gotten the chance. So he will get a chance, most likely, at some point. And when he does get it, he has got to take it. Like Pepe, he gets chances and then he doesn't take it, but people are still saying he should get a chance. He should get a chance. When he gets it, he has to take it. That's my only thing. And if he's better than Odegaard there, he can add something different. I feel like Arteta will see that and will use him there. There's 400 of you guys in here, which is insane. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, Ramsdale's shaky performance. So this is just like, I think my only kind of like, okay, what's going on here is just, it's something that I want to touch on and then move away from, because ultimately it was a good performance and I don't want to be like a downer. But Ramsdale, he kind of said on his Instagram after the game that the return home was enjoyable. Thank you, everyone, for the noise. Sometimes mistakes happen, but I'm super proud the boys digging us out today. Enjoy the weekend. So, it was the penalty that was overturned. I don't think he touched him, but I don't necessarily know if he needed to be out there in the first place. It was the Madison goal, which I do think that he should have done better on. I think he does have an issue at his front post. He does tend to let goals in there. It went through his legs, but we've seen similar situations with Ramsdale. And then it was the Saliba situation with the own goal. I don't necessarily see it this way, but some people do see it in that way, where maybe he should have had better communication or not been in no man's land. It depends on how you see it. And so when you look at this game, you can say that maybe Ramsdale, with his distribution was quite good. If Gabriel Jesus had scored that goal, he would have had an assist. So he has that Ederson ability about him, but I don't want him to be Ederson. Ederson is not a great shot-stopping goalkeeper. He's more of a midfielder back there. And that's no shade to Ederson. I think he's a great goalkeeper, but in terms of like all-around goalkeeping, there's goalkeepers that are definitely superior to him in terms of being able to do things with his feet, but also be a reliable shot stopper. And what I'm seeing from Ramsdale is that he's less Allison and more Ederson in this young age at the beginning of his career. And I'm wondering if it's something that will smooth out over time, or if this is going to be the reality of Ramsdale long term, because I'm just seeing patterns now. I'm seeing shaky moments, almost like hubris back there, a little bit of overconfidence, sometimes coming off his line, or, coming out to be a part of possession and then holding onto the ball too long. And then I see moments of like pure brilliance, like the kick out that he did to Zinchenko against Crystal Palace and the kick out that he did against Leicester for Jesus. And so it's very much of a two-sided coin with Ramsdale, where what he does in possession is so important to what we do, but in the moments where he needs to defend, we need him to keep the ball out of the back of the net. And so you could say that if Ramsdale does better, it's 4-0, or you could say that maybe 4-1. And that score line looks a lot better. Maybe we're not under so much pressure. I don't think we were on like immense pressure, but you know what I mean. But Ramsdale is somebody that I'm looking at like, okay, this needs to straighten out a bit. I would love it if you would just like maybe not, make me have a heart attack every single game. But I think Ramsdale is has such good value in terms of what we want to do in possession, but he needs to be coached more on that front post, I think, because that seems to be a little bit of a weakness for him. The Matt Hatter says we need a new goalkeeper coach. We know Inaki is quite what's the word? Eccentric in how he coaches his goalkeepers. And so, like in the air, Ramsdale is really good. On the ground, he's slow on the ground and very quick in the air. And so that's something that they just need to work on him with. I'm not sure that I believe that the goalkeeper coach is doing a terrible job. I'm just wondering if that's something that Ramsdale needs to improve upon. John P. says Ramsdale is a baby in goalkeeper terms, cannot think of another 23-year-old goalkeeper playing under pressure of a big club that is better. Him and Saliba have played 2 games. Communication will improve. And you've kind of seen that the communication between maybe Ramsdale and Saliba hasn't been great, but also between Gabriel and Zinchenko hasn't been great. I do think that they lack a little bit of like Gabriel is very comfortable next to Tierney, but next to Zinchenko, there's a little bit of shakiness there. So maybe it's just going to take some time to get used to your new teammates and what it's all about and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't blame Ramsdale for the Saliba own goal. I just think that was a freak scenario that neither of them, like, it's just something that I'm willing to just put under the rug and just say this probably won't happen again. But that near post goal, or the one that went through his legs from Madison, I know that he hit it really hard and maybe he wasn't ready for it, but you kind of have to be ready for it. And I do agree, John P., that he's very young, but I think it's also something that it's okay for us to talk about without it being like he is shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just an area of improvement. Just very similarly to every other player that we have at the moment. It's an area of improvement for Xhaka and for Martinelli and these players that are so young. It's just an area of improvement. Is something that, but I do think it's something that could cost us, in certain games because he is so young. It's the price that you pay for having young players in your team. Blaze says, Jess, what's your thought on Gabriel's performance? He likes some tweets when Arsenal fans defend him from criticism. Well, with Gabriel, I do think that Gabriel, like, I love Gabriel. I do. I just think that on the ball, sometimes he leaves a lot to be desired in terms of his calmness, and close control, his first touch. I do think sometimes he holds on to the ball a little bit, maybe too long, or his first touch is not close enough. So yeah, I do think that like Gabriel is a great player that he hasn't really looked like his 100% self in preseason or at the beginning of the season. But I expect him to there's some players that have started slow. Saka started slow. Gabriel started slow. Thomas Partey has started slow. And there's other players that have come straight out of the traps, so we have to give him time. But I do think Gabriel is just somebody that he's not ever going to be like Saliba or Ben White in possession, because that's just not who he is. He's improved on it, but I do think there's a ceiling to what he can do in possession. But one-on-one, one-on-one defending, I think he's been good. One-on-one defending, I think he's been good. I think he's been hard to get change out of. Hold on. Yeah, he's been really difficult to get change out of 1v1. So yeah, I think he's pretty good. Like there's nothing really to be worried about in terms of Gabriel. And if he's defending himself or, you know, retweeting or liking tweets of people, you know, defending him, fair enough. You know, I know he does read stuff online. You know, he's responded to stuff in the past. So it is what it is as far as I'm concerned. Colin Young says CP is hold on really quick, you guys. I'm sorry. This looks like it might be important. Hold on, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I think he's just fine. You guys, that was kind of an important call and I do have to go. Let me read this super chat. Thank you, Aya, so much for your super chat. You're saying just people don't remember what a person does. They remember how the person made them feel. Odegaard, like Ben White, are just victims to transfers that certain fans didn't like. Madison with Odegaard and Saliba, loan with White. I think that's a really decent point that you make there that some people just can't let go. And so the last point that I'm not really going to get to go to because you guys, I do have like that was a very important call that I have to get to. It's a second half control. I just wanted to show you guys that this is maybe something that I do a short video on, maybe tomorrow or something like that. But there is kind of like something with Arsenal with our second halves where we don't control the game as much. As you guys can see in the first half against Leicester, we had 55% possession. And then in the second half, they edged out the possession. It was quite similar in the Crystal Palace game. So you guys can let me know in the comment section when the game or the video kind of ends, what you guys think about that, what you guys think the reasoning is for that. Because you guys, I'm sorry, that was a really important call and I do have to go. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's 350 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.